order. Again, it's good to see everyone. First item on our agenda is a public hearing. You got about fall out of your chairs down there?
Stand up.
All right. First item on the
My apology.
public hearing is amendment to Title 11, Chapter 5 of the Jonesborough Municipal Code, Section 11-519, B2 Central Business District. Anyone here to talk about that? There's a lot of stuff in that. All right. If not, we'll close that public hearing. Now we'll move into our regular meeting. And first item on the agenda is our opening prayer by Vice Mayor Dixon.
Let's all pray. Dear God, we're just grateful people today for this another day that you've allowed us to see. God, we look around our road and we know that many people are persecuted, people are hurting. There's a lot of strife and a lot of struggle going on in the world. But God, you have blessed us, God, to get up, to go about, God. Some of us, God, to start businesses, own businesses. You've allowed some of us to have great careers. Jesus, you've been so good, God, to us. And we are very appreciative, grateful for all that you've done, all that you're doing, all that you're going to do. God, we ask that you guide this meeting, guide our deliberations, may everything be done to your glory. This and everything we ask in your name, God, we pray. Amen.
Good. Who do you have tonight for our class?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Tom. Good.
I thought it was mine.
All right. You know, it's a little bit different up here tonight. We don't have Abby with us as our town recorder. We've got Mr. Pat Ryder here. And I had to research, I've been saying Madam Recorder for so long. What do you say to just the opposite? And we've got a choice to make. We can either call you Monsieur or Mr. I don't know, Monsieur sounds kind of fancy. We might need that.
I'll answer to both.
Okay. Mr. Recorder, call the roll, please. Here. 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 All right, very good. We're all here. And next item on the agenda is our consent agenda. Alderman, quite a few things there, personnel things. Anything you see on there you want to have removed to discuss? All right, got a motion to approve from Alderman Countermine. Second from Alderman Callahan. Any discussion? Call for the vote.
We just need to make sure that the correction that
Yes, you got
Mr.
one.
Rosenhoff did is included.
Yeah, there's one on 7H and then the meter.
You got a slight revision to 7H, which basically is adding the, and to obtaining the CDL license within 90 days. You comfortable with those revisions, Terry?
Yes.
Virginia? Okay. All right, Mr. Recorder, call the vote, please.
Caroline?
Aye.
Callahan?
Aye.
Alderman Carter?
Aye.
Alderman Dixon?
All right, motion carried. Again, several personnel things there that adding some, losing some, unfortunately, but that's just the nature of it. Adam and I were talking about, a couple of people moving from our area. Most of the people are moving here now, but it's kind of surprising to see somebody moving away. And Adam said we'd like to keep our young people here if we can get them back. All right. Next item on our agenda is our financial report. Alderman, you probably had a chance to look through that. Things look to be in order. Our sales tax collections continue to stay solid. Don't have any comments or questions about that. None, I'll take a motion to approve. Motion to approve from Alderman Dixon. Second. Second from Alderman Callahan. Any discussion? Call for the vote, Mr. Recorder.
Alderman Dixon?
Aye.
Alderman Callahan?
Aye.
Alderman Carter?
All right, motion carried. All right, next item on our agenda is communication from the mayor. And just a couple of quick things. One, got to take part in a grand opening downtown this week. It's always nice to see things happening down there. And McLeod's Organics opened up there on Main Street. Steve Cook's old Glassworks place, beautiful store. And we wish them much success. Just great people. I think they lived in North Carolina their whole life. And I think they come over here and they feel like this is home. So it's great to hear their story. And tomorrow, we're having our groundbreaking for our Jonesborough School project at 4 o'clock. So welcome to come up there. I even have you grab a shovel and start digging. But we'll be doing that tomorrow at 4. I think the weather's going to cooperate with us, so things are looking good. I stopped by there a few days ago, and it's neat to just to see those working. Yeah, big equipment out there moving dirt. And one side of the property is like a big old cliff over there, but it's they're working at it. It's great to see. All right, now I think our Public Works Department's making great progress. We paid, Craig, appreciate that, paid most of West Main and a bunch of other streets, so making great progress. Finished the bridge behind the Main Street Cafe. So staying productive. Next thing, we have a proclamation. United Way. We got Leslie and Lester here from them, so I'll come down there and read the proclamation for you. Appreciate you all being here.
Something was wrong with me. I haven't been in Jonesborough begging since 2016. A lot of changes, a lot of great changes that have been happening, but thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Alderman. Thank you to Mr. Manager and Mr. Recorder. There was a change, there's a different here, and we just look forward to continuing to work with the town of Jonesborough, who's worked so diligently with this campaign for well over more years than I even knew before I became the manager. Virginia, congratulations. Good to see you. Boston in another way. It's just awesome to be in the town of Jonesborough. And I see Jim's already pulled out his wallet. So let's go out and start raising some money here in the town of Jonesborough. The United Way, this new name, the East Tennessee Highland, has been doing work since 1933, touching lives for children, adults, individuals at risk, working on financial stability, education, and health throughout all of our community. No difference now, and we look forward to building that bridge to the future that will help us to understand how awesome and mighty it is to be able to help one another. Your work down through the years, Jonesborough as a partner with our United Way organization, and now it is expanded to not only include Washington County, but it also includes Johnson County, a portion of Sullivan County, as well as Carter County. Thank you for all of the years that you have made this United Way campaign exist and made it happen. You are truly appreciated, and it's always great to being the oldest town in the state of Tennessee. Thank you all so much. You got anything?
Thank you all so much. We actually got our reports back from last year's BMA, our mid-year reports, and we would have already been able to help over 20,000 people in the area that Leslie just mentioned. So that's huge. And so we really appreciate your continued support over the years, and we look forward to helping a lot more people.
Thank you.
In all those years since 2016, I've never been arrested for begging for money in Jonesborough. Thank you all. Don't arrest me now.
Lester, that's the shortest message you've ever preached before you sent the offer letter.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
All right, our next thing on the agenda is our Employee of the Month. And that's just Roger Hickory up here.
That's right.
First and foremost, he is always punctual and arrives before the rest of the staff day. Consistently ensuring that all those are ready to serve the public every day. Roger takes pride in the appearance and the safety of the community center. His upbeat, clear, and quality reputation. Always set up the right special events regarding the setup and how the room should look and function. Roger goes above and beyond by always being transparent. He blows leaves in the fall, sells snow in the winter months. During spring and summer, he weeds the flower beds, cleans out dead flowers, and blooms and disposes of debris in an appropriate way. Over the past few years, Roger has become a vital part in helping with our art activities. Not only does he keep our exhibit panels and pedestals clean, painted, and looking good, he installs the lighting and helps arrange panels, and helps paint heavy pieces when necessary. Roger always helps carry artwork for artists living their work. COVID has increased the number of tasks required of Roger, which including daily sanitizing of common spaces and disinfecting air filters. If you ever see or any triggers or surgeon in trouble, right? Yeah. Roger spends a tremendous amount of energy every day to make sure the center is safe and functional. Visitors are impressed and often comment on the overall look of the Mckinney Center, and staff are confident in addressing questions about potential vendors and participants. I agree with that. The best characteristic about Roger is he displays a solid
All right, last thing I've got is some committee appointments. You see there, Alderman, we got in the Planning Commission appointing Bill Graham to fill an unexpired term. And Employee of the Month, we've got Deborah Cruz going to take on that responsibility. And I've got a question about that, Lynn and Jim, maybe to address later, just whether or not that committee can be expanded any. I think there are only 3 members on that.
Yes.
So maybe we could add another person or 2 to that committee. Yeah, I think that'd be helpful. McKinney Center Advisory Committee, we got Mr. Austin Yarber nominated for that. And then the Senior Center Advisory Board, we got Linda Bradley and Hing Wong to fill those 2 vacant positions. Any questions or comments about that? I'll take a motion to approve it. Motion to approve from Alderman Carlson. Got a second from Alderman Countermine. Any discussion? Call for vote, Mr. Recorder. Aye. All right, motion carried. Next thing's Alderman Communications. Alderman, anything you want to share with the community?
I have one just for Mr. Rosemont, executive.
But definitely in the trend, as we've talked about before, I'm not saying the trend of people coming in, but we have also a trend people leaving, so it would be probably prudent for us to give us more information when they're, I think gives them
Mayor and I were talking about this a few minutes ago. 3 years, Mayor's already alluded to it, folks that moved out of state. And, there are conversations of how they can retain talent. And it'd just be interesting to know, and of course one of the young folks did say, they Greenville and dreamed of and such. So just good to have that information.
Greenville, South Carolina.
Greenville, South Carolina. Yeah, exactly.
I've been there. It is a nice big city. Greenville is pretty lots of different things.
sure citizens, especially, I get a lot of calls about recycling, traffic safety, and I've asked Mr. Rosenberg to say a few words about that, because we haven't talked about it, but we need to get some things done, or whatever the status is of it.
So is everybody, well, everybody knows, the recycling program was predominantly a full-time town employee and a couple of inmates. And that went on for a great long time and was very successful. COVID came in, you know, we didn't know how long is that going to last. It affected the inmates. So we did not have current personnel to basically continue doing the recycling. So at the budget meeting, we passed the budget allowing for 2 part-time employees to be hired to do recycling. Maybe leading on to Alderman Dixon, as he was talking about people exiting, the other hard part is getting them to enter the workforce. That's trending as well. So I had a conversation with Director Thomas just earlier today, and we did last week as well, is looking into how can we recruit part-timers, and if part-time is the variable that is not yielding us our fruit, which is getting people to work, then we need to figure out budgetarily, is there a way to afford to do full-time? Because we need to start. And so I don't know whether or not, there's no studies out there that says part-time is not going to yield you workers, but I'm really thinking that it's crickets right now. Last I checked on people applying, which is kind of unusual. So we don't know. We're going to look into full-time and what extra cost does that mean. Of course, if you had full-time, there's other duties that we could be doing. We talked about arboretum stuff, that property over there, and so that's just another discussion I'll have with everybody, or be able to email everybody before the next meeting. We need to move on something else. And I emailed you because I keep Jonesborough beautiful, and it just seems that we're having a hard time tapping into part-time. Even when we went and eliminated the grade 1s and 2 and went to grade 3, it's still not yielding what we thought we would get. I thought we would have 2 part-timers.
Well, there's probably two ways to look at that. It's the same way in the private sector right now. It's a little bit difficult to hire. And there's a lot of competition out there in the $15 an hour range and lower and so forth. And but there are people who might prefer part-time, but there's 2 ways to look at it. If you go full-time, you got all the extra costs that comes along with that. If you have other duties for them, that'd be great, as we can utilize them in Parks and Rec or something like that. But if not, we might want to look at, hey, somebody's going to work 20 hours a week for them. What's the impact if we go from the current offering to a higher part-time rate to just entice them? Because then you don't have to worry about paying all the other incidental costs that comes along with it. But might entice somebody to come out and work for 20, 25 hours if they felt like the hourly rate was more. You're not saving in the long run. Unless we have a lot of stuff on to do.
Mayor, one of the good things is with that position, we have a full-time and 2 part-time.
Yeah, there is a full-time.
We've had the part-time, one of those positions filled with a former employee who couldn't work full-time, so that leaves us still having to fill those 2 positions at least instead of the 3.
And I'm meeting with Director Thomas tomorrow to figure out a game plan that's palatable to get this moving. I mean, you have probably well over 80% of the town that wants to recycle, which is a great thing. And it's convenient to have curbside versus putting it in your car and bringing it somewhere else.
Yeah.
Since we're already into the budget, we're almost 6 months in. Even if we hire the 2 people, we're still going to be okay financially by hiring them. Then we'll discuss it at the budget to whether to bring them full-time.
We have a pretty good buffer right now of not having people in play that we've not been paying in those positions.
So could we go ahead and just advertise for full-time?
Well, I think, that position would need to be approved by the board full-time, but I think, if I'm not mistaken, Alderman Causey, I think we had only budgeted those positions for like 9 or 10 months anyway, because we were already a couple of months into the budget when the budget passed. Now, I don't want to misquote that or misstate that, but I believe we only funded those positions for 9 or 10 months to begin with.
But there will be some money coming in from the COVID relief, right?
I mean, we have money that recently came in, but whether or not that could be used for solid waste salaries would be another thing that I'm still reading.
And this is going to be a reoccurring
A lot of it's
expense.
the non-recurring.
I mean,
Yeah, when you say equipment and materials, that's probably falls well within the range, but what I can suggest is kind of like, I mean, again, I can meet with myself and Mr. Ford and Mr. Thomas and even Mr. Ryder, sit down with the current budget, look at where we're at, and again, I won't wait till, let's just say at the end of this week, come up with a game plan, present it, to the board, I do individual conversations and see where we're at.
Did you say we're advertising for a full-time in recycling and a part-time, so one of each?
yes, sir.
So in a sense, we are advertising for full-time, are you not getting many applicants for that right now?
No, sir, it's a truck driver position which requires a CDL because of the size truck involved, and then the other one was the second part-time that would actually pick up the
Yeah, there's probably CDL drivers are such in demand now that you hear about supply chain issues, and it's a real thing. It's a real thing locally when you're trying to hire delivery drivers.
I mean, if they have a CDL, they can drive a dump truck, straight truck, delivery truck, it's stiff competition, right?
But I can present that more of probably a better plan to everybody when I have a chance to look at all the numbers. Do that hopefully by the end of this week or by Monday.
And that driver would go up in grade besides
The
what's in the
CDL.
budget. Because he's got he would have his CDLs, right?
It would be a grade 5, the best I can remember.
And if he's got a lot of experience, he may go to 7 like we did tonight. Possibly.
Well, I mean,
If we can
not
get 'em.
typically, because a 7 would be more along the equipment operation line. The grade 5 basically
Okay.
is just operating like a dump truck or something along those lines.
Okay.
But I'll present something intelligent to you.
Okay.
As far as traffic committee, I'm not sure what to address, but then, so traffic committee, we actually met, this was was it October or September? Time flies. Recently, they hadn't met in quite some time. When we met, we talked about a lot of different roads, including downtown Main Street, because of all the, a lot of talk about the traffic and the volume and such like that. So we've started looking at, I'm calling it kind of what I call a road diet plan, is like, how do you control speed without speed bumps? You're not going to have speed bumps all the way down from Mr. Purdue is one, or where Dr. Kennedy lives as well, all the way down to where the Fallows are, all the way down to that end. So we're looking at the intersection right in front of the Corner Cup, where there's a lot of traffic, a lot of sounds like bad driving behavior going on. So we're looking. There was an older plan that we've tried to pull out that had kind of a raised island in, I guess, around the Main and Boone Street, that intersection right there. But I know there was one thing we're looking at is with that raised intersection area. I'm pretty sure the ability for I'm not sure what size truck Mr. Ford might know, but there's basically trucks would not be able to basically drive the radius of it. So our engineer Todd Wood will be here tomorrow. So the plan is to bring out those old plans and see what was kind of the deficiency in it, and relook at that again, and look at ways to slow down traffic. But it's not just over at Boone and Spring. It's also up from Mr. Pardue's property as well. It pretty much starts right there. But I experience it too. I leave Oak Grove and go to Main Street to come to work, and there's times where I'm like, man, maybe I should have gone 11E, knowing that doesn't work either sometimes early in the morning. But there's a super amount of traffic, and how do we make it harmonious for everybody? I just have to say that the traffic committee, we will be addressing it. And so we addressed it kind of on the Mr. Pardue's property end, and the next meeting we'll have is, I'm hoping at the end of this month, we'll address it all the way to the intersection that I'm describing, and try and pull out the old plans and see what was said. We can say no trucks, but GPS brings them down that way, and that's something from a public safety we've got to figure out. Is there any way to prevent people? That just, you Google Map, you bring a truck down there and it can't make the radius, that's a public safety concern. So can you put up we wouldn't do this, but put up a sign other communities have, you're going the wrong way, your GPS is wrong. Is it a campaign like that? Can we make it corrected? I can just say that it's on our radar, the whole of Main Street. And we'll let the traffic committee hear all the evidence based. We've got the traffic counts. That's basically a no-brainer to say there's a lot of traffic. There's a stupendous amount of traffic down Main Street, but how to slow it down and help the folks that work and live there and walk their dogs, walk themselves, take a stroller. So we're going to address it.
What about Lincoln Avenue as well? Can that
Yeah, so Lincoln's on the next, there was,
Corridor.
yeah, and there was, I did get, the old comments. There was like I think 2 to 3 speed bumps, and then there was the third one wasn't maybe gonna work out, but maybe there was 2. So that's on the agenda as well.
Anywhere we've paved and removed speed bumps, are we putting them back in that same location, so that Main?
At Main, yes, as a matter of fact, that, we had a lot of complaints about that, near that intersection of Clay Avenue and Main Street, when we took that one down, and of course, we took it out in anticipation that they were going to be paving soon, and then there was a delay, but yes, they'll go back up fairly soon. We understand that the county is going to be restriping Main Street tomorrow, so we'll try to get those speed tables rescheduled as soon as we can. It's just we had a lot of frustrated people on Main Street because of the inconvenience of the paving. It's kind of like we want people incarcerated, we just don't want the jail in our backyard. We'll have to divert traffic for a couple of days completely around that area. When we put those speed tables in, that asphalt goes in so thick, if you allow traffic back on it too soon, it causes it to sink. So you have to really try, it takes several hours to try to cool it down, so you don't damage it. So we'll probably have to divert traffic around the area for a couple of days anyway.
That makes sense.
And there is a engineering technique to the speed tables. I know sometimes the joke of, hey, why don't you mound it a little bit more? Just, there is a speed and a speed table, and they all go together, and that's why they are the way they are when they get installed.
Yeah, and one thing that we have downtown, it's you gotta take the good with the bad, is that we have such beautiful downtown. I think in the mornings, people when they're going to work, they have the choice: do I drive up 11E and see all the traffic there, or do I take Main Street and see the beauty of Main Street? So that's why you see such a stream of cars. It's just a nice thing to take in, whether you're going to work or coming home. And I don't think we'll never change that, because we'll always have that beautiful downtown. But you wish we could control the mufflers and the noise, because I think it wasn't too long ago, me and Glenn were sitting there with Mr. Ryder, so before he came on board, and we were trying to talk there at the corner cup, and all of a sudden you get these big trucks come up there, and just regular pickup trucks, just boom! So, that's part of it too.
It's probably having a coffee at the corner cup, not saying any other store is not, but downtown, but if you sit there for just a little bit, you'll understand the conversation we're having about Main Street.
Yeah, Glenn's a little touchy about that, setting the noise.
It's in my notes on my phone.
All right, Alderman,
It's important
anything else?
to us.
All right, thank you. Now, our next item on the agenda is our town attorney comments. Jim?
Mayor, I've got one item tonight, and I'll be asking you to add an item to your agenda. Anytime when we're doing events in the town of Jonesborough, we're encouraging people to utilize the public roadways, sidewalk, and our facilities. But when we do that, we most always have them sign a hold harmless agreement and have insurance to cover that. That's to shift the responsibility and liability from the taxpayer to the entity that's holding the event. So there's policy reasons behind that. Last year, you all added at my request, added to the facilities rental agreement that we use an addendum for specifically related to COVID liability. The purpose of this 2-page document was to say to folks, we're going to allow you to come back in, use our facilities, but you're responsible for your guests. So, and that agreement is between us and the event holder, not between us and the guest. And we don't have, it's not practical for us we do it for Little League, and it's a major undertaking. But otherwise, we don't have any way to have an agreement with each participant at an event and to make sure we get a signed agreement. So we've basically said, always in the past, on any type of liability, you deal with your participant. If you want them to waive liability, that's between you and them. But you are waiving liability for your participant as far as we're concerned and taking us out of the picture on liability. Now, does that mean we wouldn't get sued? No. Does that mean that we might not have some liability? No. But we're trying to add layers of protection just like any other business would or any other governmental entity. We had a request recently to change this policy, and in looking at that, I realized you all had adopted the policy. It needed to come back to you all. So I do have the second 2 pages in the handout I put on your desk tonight are the requests from the vendor. But what it basically does, and what he stated he wanted to do, is leave it between us and the participant that they were accepting the liability. Well, the problem is they're not the one signing the agreement, the vendor is. That will not work. I do not recommend you consider what the vendor requested. I did think we needed to make most of the changes that are on the first 2 pages in blue are actually just changing some language. This was put together, of course, pretty quickly last year. Needed to make some changes in the one paragraph where it referred to it in first person to change that. I did make one change that they requested that I thought was valid, and that was to make it clear, and it's down on the 5th line from the bottom, that it's clear that what we're talking about when we talk about town employees doing something wrong, that the only thing they're waiving is COVID-related. Okay? So if a town employee is negligent, we're going to be responsible for that. But we are asking them to waive that with respect to COVID issue. So if somebody comes in and says, well, your employee should have made them wear a mask, or your employee should have cleaned this better or that, that's where we are asking in that limited circumstance for COVID that the event holders going to hold us on. So they need to make sure they have dealt with all COVID-related issues. So we got best practices listed in here that you listed last year. None of this actually requires anything. It's just what we're telling them they should do. Again, I think that language is important to be in there to protect us. We have told them what they're to do, and I would recommend that you leave that language in there. This is not a policy about what we think is best, should be done or shouldn't be done right now. This is one where you throw the kitchen sink in there because we're trying to protect ourselves from liability, while we continue to allow people to come into the facilities, use the facilities, and keep things open. But this is what we recommend, or I recommend to you, with respect to the liability on that. Change it, trying to shift the liability to the event holder like we would, like we have for years, and like we'll continue to do. So I would recommend that you add that to your agenda first, and then approve the modifications that I've got on the first 2 pages, and we'll respectfully let the event holder know that we can't take on the responsibility for him of having his attendees waive liability, but we will advise him you can simply draw up your own, have your council draw up your own waiver and deal with each of your individual attendees, but we can't take that on. It's not practical for us to try to do.
Is that something we have to do tonight? Because I could be wrong, I might have missed it, but have we had the opportunity to read this in advance of this meeting?
No, but again, the only changes are marked in blue. It's just I's, you, we're changing from I to you, my to your. The only substantive change is that COVID-related down in that bottom paragraph. This is a policy you have in place now. The event is coming up, so they need something to let him know. Now, we can't just tell him, nope, you got to sign it just like it is. He's been waiving, any liability.
Will this be for any other future vendor as well?
It would be. You could, if you want to, you could always come back next month and change it, but again, I think that, I don't know when the event takes place. I don't know if you know that. Mr. Woodwell.
I'm thinking December, but I may be wrong. It's a 2-day rental. But as Mr. Wheeler is saying, without coming before the board, the one without revisions or proposed revisions stands as a policy for rentals. This one cleans it up. It doesn't make it any more restrictive, I would think, than we have. It just does add, as Mr. Wheeler is saying, the COVID-related claims, which is a good catch. But again, we wanted the courtesy of when a renter, we've not had this maybe one other time in a year and a half, when a rental person comes in and starts to basically critique or revise our own policy to meet their needs. That makes it more difficult, as Mr. Wheeler's saying. That would be when I correspond with Mr. Wheeler, it's usually, are we protected more or less by a change? And the original that was sent was definitely less. We don't have that. It's not to our advantage or protecting us as much as we need to be protected.
I would point out the renter has not requested any change to the best practices. So if you're looking at that as possible, you may want to tweak that later. I would suggest that's not what this renter, they don't care about that at all. What they're focused on is the liability to the guest.
Yeah.
Which I would caution you, it would not make sense. I mean, it wouldn't take very many lawsuits on that before, if you're going to accept responsibility for the guest, before you'd have to stop letting people use your facility.
Yeah, I guess that's the best practices where I'm reading to avoid the transmission of COVID-19. A lot of that, I guess, is putting it back in on their plate, and there's not many requirements to the vendor. Just recommendations. Am I reading that right?
That is correct. It does say that they will have their vendors, caterers, vendors, and servers wear masks. That's really the only one. And that, again, is designed to try to limit liability if someone's exposed. It'd be like if you go in a restaurant right now, most of the time you see what the servers have wearing. They're not requiring, this doesn't make them require their guests to wear it.
So your suggestion is to just add this to the agenda and then we can discuss it more and go on?
Yes, sir.
Well, I'll make a motion, we add it to the agenda.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second to add it to the agenda. Any discussion? Call for the vote, Mr. Recorder.
Alderman Countermine?
Aye.
Alderman Causey?
Aye.
Callahan?
Aye.
Alderman Dixon?
Aye.
All right. All right, anybody got any discussion about this? Questions to ask? Okay, if not, I'll take a motion to approve, I guess, the somewhat minor changes you see in it. I do see it kind of shift the responsibility more towards the vendor.
Mayor, move to approve.
Okay. Motion to approve from Alderman Dixon.
I'll second it. And thank you, Jim, for catching it.
A second from Alderman Countermine. Any other discussion? Call for the vote. Monsieur Recorder.
Mayor? Alderman Dixon?
Aye.
Alderman Countermine?
Aye.
Alderman Callahan?
Aye.
Alderman Causey?
Aye.
Motion carried. Anything else, Jim?
No, sir. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is our citizens' comments. If you're a citizen of Jonesborough or one of our water customers, we'd love to hear from you. So if anybody has anything they'd like to address with the board, please come forward. Susan. Just please give us your name and address for the record.
My name is Susan Fowler. My husband and I, Daryl, we live at 204 East Main Street, which is on the corner of East Main and Spring Street. And I'm a little nervous. I've never done this before, although I know most of them.
We're harmless.
And I wanted to thank Glenn for your comments about the traffic committee being resurrected, dusting off a few plans, because that's why I'm here tonight, is to express my concern as a historic homeowner, citizen of Jonesborough about what we've been seeing from our bird's eye view of the intersection of those 5 converging traffic lanes in downtown Jonesborough. It has created not only a issue with the volume of traffic flowing through town in those 5 convergent points, but also from a noise perspective and also a public safety perspective, because the only 2 crosswalks there are not managed in any way that a pedestrian can alert the traffic that they're coming. And what I have found, because I do live there on that corner, and I do like to walk my dogs, and I need to get to a sidewalk, I have to cross those streets somewhere. And that's part of why we chose to live in Jonesborough, was so we could walk our dogs in downtown and take advantage of everything that y'all have created in this town. There are a lot of areas and a lot of tangents I could go off on, but what I'd like to do is offer up a few of my thoughts that I've had as I have had this as be a very top of mind awareness issue when I go out and work in the yard and just participate. And I'd like for you to consider, as you do have some budget surpluses and some other things, and perhaps with the traffic committee, that we, and know it in no particular order, number 1, change the speed limit in all of the effective historic district to 15 miles an hour. I know coming down East Main, every speed hump drops to 15. On College, it effectively is because the visibility in the hills. Slow it down. There's no reason the speed should go over that last hump at Clay Street and drop to 15, and then you get to accelerate to come down the hill to 20. So let's consider, and I would ask you to consider that, taking that speed limit down. I know that enforcement is always an issue. So one of the things from enforcement without a personnel involvement is if we could invest in some of the portable solar radar speed limit signs. They can be moved around. Johnson City has them. You put it up, it's the same size as a speed limit sign, and it tells you what your speed limit is. And it's a subtle awareness issue to let someone know, yes, you probably are accelerating at 40 miles an hour to get to the top of East Main Street. You don't need to, but you are. So it's an awareness issue. It's the same thing that y'all use during storytelling when you slow the traffic down in front of town hall. So it's just a small version, and it can be rotated through downtown and any other area so that it pops up and it doesn't lose its effectiveness. If you have a person, I think that a police officer's presence in that convergent 5-point area between the hours of 7 and 8 a.m. and also again between 3 p.m. and 6 p.m. would be a tremendous asset to both public safety and also helping people navigate who's coming from which direction. Because if you actually sit, let's say you sit in traffic to turn from Boone Street on a street. If you actually look at the faces of the other drivers, nobody really knows who's supposed to be doing what. They're just sort of going for it when they can. And I've seen young kids, like they're coming from Boone and Crockett. These are younger drivers trying to come on Spring. They don't know what to do. They just know maybe if they gun it, they can do it. A police officer might be able to help them out a little bit, wave them through. So it's something that I'd ask you also to consider as you allocate personnel dollars. Perhaps we could have a police presence in that area Monday through Friday from 3 to 6 p.m.
I'll say I'm not a teenager, and I do that. I'm on Spring Street looking up the hill, say, I just gotta go.
It's pretty overwhelming. One last thing, as far as the crosswalks are concerned, Johnson City has done this very effectively because I know that there probably will never be a traffic light at that 5-way intersection. But there are crosswalk buttons that can be pushed by pedestrians that light up embedded lights. crosswalk in the street. So that even at night, for example, we were trying to come here tonight and we had to cross the crosswalk. Well, there's a truck coming and Daryl says, why are you stopped? And I said, because he doesn't have his turn signal. I don't know if he's going straight up the hill or turning, and if I enter the crosswalk and it's dark, you know, it's one of those issues where if we had a button to push, at least we could light it up. To alert him, we're getting ready to cross. Again, that's another thing. It wouldn't require a person except a pedestrian to say pedestrians do by law have the right of way in the crosswalk. There are a lot of other things, and I really appreciate listening to you. I appreciate you taking this time. I don't know how to ask you to be accountable to do something, and forgive me, I don't want to be antagonistic, but I do think that anything I can do as a citizen, I'm here to support you, but I would like to see what we can do and actually address it as soon as possible, because I think that we've had a lot of growth, and I think that's great, and we've got some extra money, that's great. I think that we need to protect our past and our future. Thank you.
Very good.
Thank
Well
you.
said. Thank you. Thank you. Well, see, she's married to Daryl, who knows something about Chick-fil-A drive-thrus, and you can't get any better than how they manage those things. So we're going to take your advice on all this. The masters. All right. Anyone else? Ruth.
Everybody knows me, I'm afraid. I'm Ruth Verhage. I live at 601 West Main Street, and I'm chair of the Jonesborough Flag Committee, and I wanted to invite all of you to our flag retirement ceremony at 2 o'clock Sunday afternoon in the parking lot next to the post office. This is conducted, well, I'm kind of the MC, but it's conducted primarily by the Daniel Boone Marine Corps Junior ROTC, and they do an absolutely beautiful job. And if you haven't ever come, I invite you to come so you have the opportunity to see them. We retire one flag publicly, and the rest are retired behind the post office. And we have, in the time we've been in existence, we've retired over 25,000 flags over the last 20 years. So
What's the date?
the date is Sunday, the 14th.
21st?
No, it's the 14th.
14th?
I said the 21st first and then corrected that. It's the 14th,
2 o'clock, you said?
2 o'clock.
Oh, that's this Sunday.
It's this coming Sunday, yes. Sorry, Judge. Pardon?
What's the location?
The location is in the parking lot right next to the post office. We use their flagpole,
A great ceremony last year.
Always.
First one I was at.
so
Great speaker.
like to see everybody there.
Thank you, Ruth. Yeah, last year that was good, and that was Glenn had first had been with us too long and had a chance to speak at that, and Glenn's got a great story, and gave a great introduction for himself at that ceremony. Anyone else? Sir. Good evening.
Ernest Mckinney, 119 North Lincoln Avenue. Sidewalks up East Main and other places. That's why I'm walking so slow. I walk in the mornings and I have to watch how I'm going, especially coming up Main Street or going down East Main Street. I usually walk out to West Main Street, catch that trail and go up. There's sidewalks. East Main Street, I'm at the mercy of whoever's driving, so just kind of put that on your agenda if possible. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, may I address that?
Yes, sir.
We're talking about Lincoln, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we have been re-reviewing, taking the plans out and dusting them off on some of the surveying that was done on East Main. If I'm in the wrong location, tell me. Basically from the senior center in that area all the way down into downtown. So, I think Mccoy Surveying had done some for us, so we're working on that to look not just at the plans, but seeing if any of the infrastructure like water and sewer, if there's anything in the ground that's would prevent us from sidewalks. So there's not a funding source to it right now, but it is in the planning stages right now, and we think we have a lot of good information from the surveyor that have done some work before, so we are looking into that as well.
Yeah, it's always been something I think the board's always wanted for way too many years.
Yeah.
It seemed like there's always been one hurdle we couldn't get over, and we didn't get on to something else.
To make sure there's no conflicts with current infrastructure, or if there was, how can we resolve it, and at the same time also, yeah, I think we're good. I think we're good on right away, but we're double checking that on the surveys, and then also looking at some folks that have talked over the years, I think, on different areas of crosswalks, safe crosswalks if they're possible.
Okay.
But we are looking up from the senior center down.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Ma'am?
Hi, my name is Kim Helvey. My husband Dan and I just moved here from Durango, Colorado, and
Welcome.
we're at 100 East Woodrow Avenue. Don't ask me to zip. I still don't know it. I don't know why I'm up here, but mostly to say that we randomly were on a trip last year and looking for small town America, and most people ask, why are you here? You know, what made you move here? And I just want to tell you that we're not here to change things. We're here to support what you already have, which is a beautiful town. Strategically, it's funny because I met Ruth at a tree decorating, and of course Susan and Daryl welcomed us into their friendship and family and friends, and Jonathan and Cheryl and many others. And I'm like, well, let's see. They're all on that main strip, and we bought the Bledsoe house, which is a hairy little corner. And I'm like, why did we do that? Well, we haven't been haunted out yet. Of course, I do have a noisemaker and a couple of cats that give me fair warning, and the drain. But the main thing is that, you know, I think strategically we've made these friends because there are no sidewalks there. So if we do get hit, we could just lunge into their yards and we have a safe haven. So, anyway, I'm not here to complain. I'm just here to support my friends that we've met and just tell you all that this is a great town, and we would love to participate in keeping Jonesborough beautiful, and we're so excited to be in the Bledsoe house, and hopefully won't get hit on that corner trucking our way to Mr. Callahan's establishment. That's tricky, but we'll get there. I'm suggesting maybe some orange vests for all that want to travel. Anyway, thank you all for everybody that we've met, and it's just an amazing place. I mean, it's really down. So anyway, we're very excited.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I think, was that a temporary solution until sidewalks go in, we give all of you orange vests? We can probably round that up.
There may be knowledge of the problem.
Thank you. Cheryl?
That's right.
Thank you, Mayor Best. My name is Cheryl Lyon, and I live at 269 East Main Street. I've lived in Jonesborough for, I guess, going on probably 16 years now. I love Jonesborough. I moved here because, much like Susan and my other friends over here, it's a beautiful town. But I can tell you one thing that has changed over the past 15 or 16 years is the number of people that have moved to Jonesborough. The traffic has become unbearable downtown. And I don't mean to be disrespectful, but quite honestly, we've talked about sidewalks for about 15 years now. So I'm kind of wondering when that's actually going to occur. So again, I ask you to please reconsider the sidewalks. I'm a runner. Mr. Mayor Best, you see me running all the time downtown. Terry, you see me running downtown. Getting to downtown is a nightmare. I live on East Main. Lincoln Avenue When cars get to the top of Lincoln Avenue where the Senior Citizen Center are, they do not lay on their brakes until the first speed hump, which is right in front of the Vineses and World's Floors. So then all you hear is cars sliding, coming down the hill. To the point to where I've seen a small dog get hit. And when the Bledsoe's children lived in that rental home on the other side of, on the Vineses, I was scared to death for those children to get anywhere near the road. Back to my point of being a runner. Sorry, got off task there for a moment, off tangent. But there is no sidewalk, so I do have to get on the road to run downtown. This past Saturday after work, it was 2:30, 3 o'clock, and when I say I run facing traffic, because I feel like that's what you're supposed to do. So now that the speed humps are gone, it's even worse. And I know we're getting those back, and I appreciate that. Please hurry. A car was this close to me this Saturday, simply because another car was on the other side traveling west, and a car traveling east would not slow down. It was almost like a contest to get past me, to the point where if I had done this, I would have hit the car. That's unnecessary. Now I know someone could say, well, you could walk downtown or even drive downtown to begin to run. I'm a citizen of downtown, I shouldn't have to do that. So I ask you to reconsider whatever traffic pattern it is that you're going to reconsider, whether that be add additional speed humps, whether that be add signage, whether that be add lights, whatever it's got to do before someone gets hurt. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Yes, sir.
We have time?
Been a while. Good evening. New faces. My name's Brian Mills. I live at 232 East Main Street. So it looks like we've got the East Main Street Brigade here today, serendipitously. And I guess I might as well just follow on that last point, because I remember sitting here or even standing here back in 2003, 2004 when we initially talked about calming the traffic down. And, you know, we very much appreciated you guys putting in the speed tables. And just to bring those up again, I look forward to having those back. But if you just bring back the speed tables without a comprehensive plan that looks at all the other aspects, then you're not giving due respect to all the scientific data that is out there on traffic calming. Now, I'm not an engineer, but I read enough on it. And if I can read it, I'm sure you guys on your traffic committee could actually put together a comprehensive plan that goes beyond simply putting in a few tables again just because they've been there before. Now, I don't want to sound disrespectful, but again, I still have the letter from the previous mayor that said we're about to put the sidewalk in. You know, I think everybody on East Main got that letter, okay? Now, I understand that hiccups came with funding, and I'm not revisiting that. But it's a very good point. You do a lot in the town. You've done tremendous things for the town and continue to do stuff that I probably don't even know about. And just recently you resurfaced. Thank you so much. But, I mean, how hard really is it to look at a sidewalk? I mean, you've got one up to a certain point on East Main Street. You even said it's part of our plan. We're going to put one in. Got the letter. At what point can we hold, use your language, accountable? When can we know that you're coming up with a plan? I'm not going to say do this, do that. I'm not here to lecture you on that. But I would like to know, as part of this community, when are we going to be able to see something and then we can discuss it? Because we all have a stake in it. Do you have any sense at the next traffic meeting? Is that going to, I mean, I don't care if it's next month, 2 months from now, but I'd like to know from somebody here that, yeah, we're working on it. And by the way, when you come up to the traffic one, we can actually have a proper conversation about it, because you've actually done some homework on it, which you've had years to do anyway. And again, I don't want to sound disrespectful because you've got a lot on your plate, but you know where I'm coming from.
Probably from my standpoint would be to communicate with those folks on East Main, to communicate with you on plans that we're looking at, versus probably me emailing back and forth with 2 people out of 50. Is probably let everybody else know what's on the horizon, what we're working on right now. If you don't know what we're working on, you just will figure that we're not doing anything. So that's my job, is to communicate with the community as you all are here. And you can catch me even at the end of the meeting, so I can get everybody's contact information and let you know where we are in the progress.
Right.
There's a couple of folks in New Halifax I know that I correspond with quite often, you know.
Yeah, I guess.
So probably, and I don't tweet, so some form of communication with everybody, knowing that we actually are striving to do something.
Yeah.
And some of the ideas have already been thought about for Main Street that need engineering backup. So I would say that the accountability would be on me to communicate effectively with the residents.
Yeah,
Now,
because
when's our next traffic committee meeting? Is that something you won't be?
Yeah, I was just talking about it earlier. I'm thinking you should probably be able to do it this month.
Yeah, I mean, those are public meetings. I'd just come join one of the traffic committee meetings and hear what's discussed, and maybe there'll be some things there that they can, start formulating. If my memory serves me right, one of the struggles we've always had with that part of Main Street is that there are some houses really close to the street there with some banks in front of them and things like that. So yes, you might be able to get a certain distance, and then you run into like, okay, now what? So I know that was discussed, and that was a hurdle of having to get, the right of way to go across somebody's property. We also debated about doing a trail or something behind some homes where we couldn't do it in front. So all of those things have been discussed, but I think there's always been something there that kept it from moving forward. It shouldn't be funding, I don't think. I think if it was funding, we'd have figured out a way to do it. Probably more some legal reasons why we couldn't go through somebody's yard, but we'll work that out. It's something I think for me, I think it'd be great for our town. We've always wanted to connect our downtown to the Jonesborough Middle School site. And before long, we're going to be taking ownership and responsibility for the football field area up there, and we'd like to turn that into a nice park where the football field is and make that much nicer, and it'd be great to tie that in with our downtown. So it seems simple, but there's always been some little things that are pretty big hurdles. But we'll keep working on them. We'll solve something, I think.
Yeah, I encourage you to go to the traffic committee.
No, I'm fine if I know about it. I just, now that
Yeah.
it's come up, and I go, you know what, I could live under a rock and then complain about something, but that's, I should at least come up here and be more invested in this matter, since I was initially anyway. And I appreciate all your feedback on that. Can I just, one last separate point, because that wasn't going to be my point, but everybody else raised it. Do you all have a list of, and are you aware of all the Airbnbs that you have in Jonesborough? Because I run a bed and breakfast, and it would be, it'd be kind of nice to know that we're all operating on the same page. I had to jump through a few hoops to become a bed and breakfast, and Airbnb is actually, you can debate whatever you want about whether it's the same thing, but quite frankly, if I have to, jump through all the hoops each year and every quarter, I don't see why Airbnbs can't do the same thing. So do you all keep a list?
And I can address it. It may have been someone asked that question maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago of the finance department, and I happened to be in it, and someone asked me the question. So one is, we've got to look at and I can check on that tomorrow, is to find the ordinance that initiated the hotel motel tax, motel hotel, however you want to say it, and see whether or not in the ordinance does it define bed and breakfast? Does it define Airbnb or transient type lodging, short term, long term, the differences between that on the taxes, basically the occupancy tax? So I can give you my phone number or my email. I'm online. You can always just send me a direct email and I'll respond back to you directly.
I'll do it.
I am looking at that because I have to see whether or not the ordinance, when the ordinance was passed, what did it capture? Because Airbnbs 10 years ago weren't trending as far as a short-term lodging or occupancy tax. Other places that I am aware of, and I've been in part of it when I was over in Irwin, when we passed the motel, hotel tax, we included 5 or 6 other definitions. Airbnbs was one of them. And the hard part about the Airbnbs is, as far as the subject matter is, some places have someone on Facebook. You know, an employee's looking at Facebook and they're going, oh, there's one, there's another. Once you send out the, you know, basically a word, if we were entering into that for motel, hotel tax, then we'd have to notify those that we think are Airbnbs and ask them to basically have a business license and register and occupancy tax.
I'm fine if everyone's on the same
Yeah.
page. If I have to do that or had to do it,
Sure.
they run the same business as me, and it could be.
The filing's
you
the
know,
same, whether you're an Airbnb or a
Really?
motel, hotel. I just have to thoroughly look, and I'll also consult with the town attorney
Appreciate it.
on the ordinance that ordained it from the beginning.
Just curious.
Yeah, if it was a few years ago, 10 years ago, probably it didn't. I'm just suspecting it probably includes some language that we would include today.
Okay.
Short-term rentals, transient type lodging.
Yeah,
Thank you, appreciate it.
But I am looking into it.
Excellent. Thank you so
vacation
much.
rental by owner.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah, I think this board would agree that Airbnbs should be treated just the same as our bed and breakfasts, so we'll look forward to seeing how that goes. Anyone else? Yes, sir. Okay.
My name's Dana Helvey. I'm married to Kim. 100 East Woodrow. We did have an Airbnb in Durango, Colorado, where we came from. There is a distinct difference between how Airbnb handles the lodging tax and other entities like VRBO. One of the things that we loved about Airbnb was that they took care of the lodger's tax, which was charged by the city and county that we lived in. And so they just basically said if there's a lodger's tax in that city and county, then Airbnb went ahead and assessed the guest for that fee, and it was passed through. It came to us, but then it went right back out. So I just wanted to, there are some differences in that, but Airbnb pretty much handles that little guy automatically when you're a host. It just comes in and it goes right out. VRBO and some others are a little different deal, because on VRBO, that's where you get into the quarterly. You are depending on that host to go ahead and assign themselves the lodger's tax on a quarterly basis. So that probably needs to be the focus of the attention, is VRBO and others that are like that. So we didn't do that angle because I wanted to pay lodger's tax to support the community. It was easier doing that through Airbnb because it was transparent. Just wanted to clarify.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Jonathan, do you have something?
I'm Jonathan Adams. I live at 269 East Main Street. Back to the traffic one more time. I think it'd be nice if you put in a 4th speed hump, maybe just up the street from us in front of Ray Fagan's house, right before Lincoln, or in front of the Gray's house, which is just past Lincoln. I think that would slow traffic down as it entered our area, because it's very dangerous there. I have asked the police department multiple times to sit in my driveway and catch speeders as they come by, and it's very productive. So I think that would help.
Thank
That's all I
you.
have to say. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? All right. Very good. Appreciate the comments, and we'll take heed of all of them. All right. Next item on our agenda is our old business. Discussion and possible action concerning second and final reading of an ordinance amending Title 11, Chapter 5 of the Jonesborough Municipal Code, Section 11-519, which is the B2 Central Business District.
Move to approve, Mayor.
Motion to approve from Alderman Dixon, second from Alderman Countermine. Any discussion, Alderman? Call for the vote, Mr. Recorder.
Alderman Dixon?
Aye.
Alderman Countermine?
Aye.
Alderman Callahan?
Aye.
Alderman Cosby?
All right, that's amended. All right, now we'll move into our new business. This is discussion and possible action concerning first reading of an ordinance rezoning Mccoy family property along Headtown Road and East Jackson Boulevard, parcel 225.03 of the Washington County tax map, from B1 to B3, and B3, that's in there twice, to B3. I have a little bit of comments about some of these, but not necessarily this one. This is the parcel, if I'm not mistaken, Glenn, it's the closest to 11E, right?
Yeah, so there's, right, it's got its hip line. I'm approaching up closer because I do have a recommendation to tweak the original recommendation that I have based on looking at the zoning map.
This basically across Headtown Road
Yeah,
from where
you
the
got-
Weigels is going in.
Right,
Yeah.
two out parcels, both are on your agenda. Both were, if you can see, there was a B1, which is the pink, down a little strip, that's probably was done years ago when Lowe's Home Improvement went in. And so you have the north and the south, and split zoning, so the idea was basically to make the entire tracks, we're only talking four track right now, three. So split zone B1, B3, and make it the entirety of the track, B3. But there is a small sliver of drive that is pink, which is between the two parcels, north and south. It really doesn't matter which one, but my recommendation is, while we're talking about this first rezoning, is that we also include the little strip there that they think that also B3. I think it's a benign change, but our town attorney can weigh in on that. I did mention it earlier today.
I'm fine with that change, so not a problem.
This is the one comment I got, like, on this one, kind of makes sense to do because it's out closer to 11E and it's across the street from Weigel's, but, you know, thinking back before the pre-Lowe's days, I came in about the time Lowe's was right before Lowe's came in. The reason that was set up as B1 neighborhood business was because there was homes along that strip of land across the street. And there was some thought that maybe that would, you know, keep those homes from being intruded on by, you know, more commercial property than what Lowe's was. So there's a pretty good little buffer there, that was the thought. How is the B1 neighborhood business compared to the B3? What's the impact? Is there any changes there with trees and landscaping, the type of building?
So we still require maybe the same amount of landscaping. The uses would be more commercial uses in the B3 zone versus the B1 neighborhood.
B1 neighborhood would tend to be what? Offices or?
Offices, more like your laundromats, I need to get my book out, but basically your neighborhood type businesses. Veterinary, professional, which is not trending in this off of Headtown Road.
Yeah.
I think, and I wasn't here back then, so I cannot tell you what the intent was, but in my experience, a strip like this is typically what you just said. It was just a protection against the residential. One of the protections that we have, probably even since that time, is that we have some pretty strong, we have very strong landscaping and buffer type requirements. Across the street is a little bit more difficult to, there's already quite a bit of vegetation right there. It is quite different or harder to protect the residents across on the east side of Headtown Road, regardless of what commercial would be there. These tracks also, if you look at older maps back when Lowe's went in, at some point these tracks were also created, the two that are in front of you tonight. They weren't that, the original ones were not configured that way. It's an old, I'm gonna say it's an old tactic of planning, in my opinion, that didn't rely on the town's regulations and development standards. And I think we have very good development regulations, tree and townscape kind of things, and I think that protects people even more.
Would it be harmful, because you got two rezonings here, this first one, which is the closest to 11E, to me, there's not really any homes across from these parcels. Why do we have to also go rezone the one that's really in front of the residents, facing to the left of Lowe's, where all the trees are? Why are we being asked to rezone that? Is there something, why do we do them both at the same time?
So the prospects for these tracts of lands are not interested in what the B1 has to offer as far as commercial uses. What they're looking at, and I'm not privy exactly what they're looking, but they're looking outside of the B1 type uses. So these tracts have not moved or gained any ground in, I don't know how, for a long time, many years. I mean, of course, it is the prerogative. There's also, when we get to the development standards, we can't necessarily on a rezoning contractually say, if we're going to rezone you, you're going to do so many trees. However, the sensitivity to the rezoning will be translated to the developers if it's approved, and at the development plan, we can discuss the sensitivity of the neighbors across the street. You also have Weigel's that went in and is on that 10-acre site, which they have plans, closer to where we're actually talking about the entrance there, of another commercial use right there just before those residences that you're talking about. So I can say that we would treat it as sensitive during the development stages if it was rezoned. Either way, whether it's B1 or B3, we would treat it the same way.
Are we able to consider what's been under consideration for use of that property for this?
Not in my opinion. I don't believe you can tie in a specific use to a rezoning.
Yeah. Well, I guess the board in the past approved that B1. This board's perfectly capable of changing it. Just I was thinking, we really need to make sure we take into account the residents across the street on the head town. They might not like what's coming in beside Lowe's and removing those trees. So it's a B1 now. Like again, I'm supportive of this first rezoning because it's up by commercial anyway. That second sliver in the back, that'd be up to the board. Alderman, have you given any thoughts about this?
A portion of that right across the street would be B3, right?
Yeah, across from this first parcel. Yeah, this is where Weigel's is.
This is what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, that's the one we're under consideration. That's Weigel's.
And right across the road here is already, this is already B3, right?
To me, that all makes sense right there.
Let's talk about more right here. Those residences right there.
Yeah, but not this space here.
That's what's for rezoning. This is the first rezoning that takes that white into red and that one white into red.
I'm more concerned about the second one coming up.
So you're
They're both B1.
Yeah, so we could make this with B3 and not them.
Mr. Mayor?
To the board.
Yes, sir.
I may have misunderstood your question earlier, but if you were asking if it's appropriate for you all to look at the list of the uses in B1 and B3, that is appropriate.
Yeah.
It's the specific, what Mr. Rosenoff was addressing was the specific use of some end user. But if you want to look at the list, we could take a break and get that from the code book for you. So if you want to know what can they do in a B1 versus what they can do in a B3, we could get that very quickly. We would need a break long enough to go get it out of the code book.
Yeah, this is first reading. Alderman, do you want to take a little break or just continue on? This is first reading.
Or we can make sure we got that for you well before
Yeah.
the second reading.
Before the next one.
I can send everybody a list, by tomorrow.
Yeah, basically, the neighborhood B1, that is, the thought there was to protect the homeowners, and we still have homeowners across the street. So that's not this zoning. It's the next one on the agenda next.
Yeah.
Is there a time crunch on this, Mr. Rosenhoff? On the rezoning? Can we table it until next month?
I'm not aware of the time crunch, but that doesn't mean someone's not under a time crunch. So the process of rezoning, it passed planning commission recommended for it. It goes before the board for first reading, and then the second reading, you have a public hearing and the second and final reading. I can't guarantee anything right now. I don't have enough information to know whether or not delaying it a month to get to first reading will do anything to their development plans. I don't have the luxury of that. I don't have that information.
Okay. Alderman, any other questions? You do have a recommendation there to approve this rezoning of this first parcel, which I think is perfectly fine.
Motion to approve.
Got the motion to approve from Alderman Callahan. Got a second from Alderman Countermine. Any other discussion? Again, this is first reading. Call for the vote, Mr. Recorder.
Alderman Callahan.
Aye.
Alderman Countermine.
Aye.
Alderman Collins.
Aye.
Alderman Dixon.
Aye. Yeah, motion carried. Now we'll move on to Similar, just discussion and possible action concerning first reading of an ordinance rezoning Mccoy family property. This is the 1.84 acres along Headtown Road and East Jackson Boulevard. Parcel 225.04 Washington County tax map from B1 to B3. I don't know if that parcel necessarily, that doesn't really connect to East Jackson Boulevard. That's basically all Headtown Road.
Yes, that's it.
Okay.
Could we move a little slower on this one, or?
I mean, again, I don't have enough information on potential developments and what their time schedule is. I would say if the board is looking to defer action, then that's what I'll communicate to who requested the rezoning.
That's what I think we should do.
Very good.
Till we know, so we can study the difference between B1 and B3.
That's good. All right, we're going to defer action on this second rezoning request. Appreciate you, Alderman. I think that's prudent. All right.
Do we have to vote on that or just?
I think it would be better to vote on that you want that information and you're tabling it
Okay.
to the next meeting.
May I get a motion to table it and get the information from Jim about the difference between B1 and B3 and the impact on Headtown Road?
I'll make that motion.
Make a motion from Alderman Countermine, second from Alderman Callahan. Any discussion? Call for the vote, Mr. Recorder.
Alderman Countermine?
Aye.
Alderman Callahan?
Aye.
Alderman Causey?
Aye.
Alderman Dixon?
Aye.
All right, next item on the agenda, discussion and possible action concerning an approval of a cabin caretaker agreement at Persimmon Ridge Park. You always got a caretaker down there, so it's usually a public safety officer.
So moved.
Got a motion to approve from Alderman Causey,
I'll second.
second from Alderman Dixon. Any comments, Alderman? Questions? Call for the vote, Mr. Recorder.
Alderman Causey?
Aye.
Alderman Dixon?
Aye.
Alderman Callahan?
Aye.
Alderman Causey?
Aye.
All right, we got discussion and possible action concerning approval of an interlocal cooperation agreement with the First Judicial District Drug Task Force. All right, seems to be in order. We certainly appreciate the work they do. Small contribution to them there, $2,000.
Move to approve.
Motion to approve from Alderman Countermine,
Second.
second from Alderman Causey. Any discussion? Call for the vote, Mr. Recorder.
Alderman Countermine?
Aye.
Alderman Causey?
Aye.
Alderman Callahan?
Aye.
Alderman Dixon?
Aye.
Motion carried. All right, last one, discussion and possible action concerning approval of a hydrant meter rental policy. And I'll just say, reading through that, I just had a couple of questions.
And there's a change to that, right? in this?
Yeah, there's
Yeah,
a
and there's
recommended
a-
revision in red on
a revision
page
there.
1 and 2, yes.
One, I felt like the $50 rental, I think was going through there, wasn't really enough. Because when I read the whole background of it, it sounded like it's a big, hairy animal. And so $50, like, yeah, well, I need 100, whatever. But then why do we find some contractors needing to tie into a hydrant and some don't? What's the reason for that?
Sometimes in development, most of the time, Mayor, this occurs out in the county. But a lot of times, they need water for construction that's not readily available. And so they manufacture, and we have purchased some that we have on hand. We've even used them on some of our own construction projects before. The meter attaches to the fire hydrant, and then they can obtain the water through that meter, but obviously it's keeping account of the water used so it can be billed. And past practice, we were charging a fee for the meter, but then we were giving them that back off for the use of water. And you know, it costs money to get that water treated to that particular hydrant where that meter's located. But it also costs, you know, quite a bit of money for us to purchase those meters to have on hand as well. It's not one of those things that you've got several people a week coming in here, but it does happen. We have occasions, as an example, a lot of times where you'll have developers who are building swimming pools that have tanker trucks that will actually come here to town hall and take the water out of a hydrant here to be able to fill that pool up. So things that we just need to put up, and it wasn't really written policy or guidelines governing how this was done.
Okay.
So this is what you and Glenn recommend?
We worked with
We worked
Director
with,
Brobeck,
Director
Kevin.
Brobeck to try to come up with more.
Yeah, we shouldn't be, is that, yeah, why are we, is that a new construction, or is that an existing home, or?
No, it's just, you know,
Yeah.
they came in and requested, you know, and we're having to build these things, and we're only charging $50, and then what they're about, for $50 for water, quite a bit of water. A lot of times they don't use that, so we're having to give them money back, and they come back, and it's really not really.
Well, and I read through there about the potential, damage to our infrastructure and things like that. There's a lot of risk involved in this, so are we allowing it to happen too often, to where it's,
I think the new guidelines we came up with, it'll be good. I mean, prior practices before all this, they just handed the meter and say, go on, and they go hook it up with fire hydrant and do things themselves. Well, steer away from that, we'll do that ourselves, so they know how to get this, we can show them how to put fire hydrant on, so we can cause a lot of problems with water hammer, as we call it, when you try to shut off the fire hydrant, sometimes the pressure, the volume of water going through will pull that plunger down and hammer the line, and send a shock wave and it'll blow the line and it'll break. So we have to make sure that somebody, if somebody is doing that, they're trained on how to do it.
So Kevin, are you okay with this policy the way it's written?
Absolutely.
The nice thing about it is that we're also thinking, what's the impact of someone tying onto our fire hydrant? What does that mean to any of our existing customers as far as pressure? So we have to look to see if this hydrant used, is that going to cause pressure, to other customers, and then that eliminates. Start looking at the fire hydrant that's not going to have an impact. But I guess it puts more analysis in it.
I'm supportive of the policy. I think with as much touching and that we're having to do, as much work we're having to do this, and $50 is not enough. We should at least be getting 100 or something. Just 50 seems too small for all the effort we have to put into that. And to me, we end up losing money even though we're collecting 50.
But if we leave the individual charge for the water usage minus that 50 fee,
Well, we don't want that. Yeah, we want to change. I like the policy. I would just change the $50 to $100 fee.
but would you give it back?
No, I wouldn't give them. I would think the water usage.
The time the $50 would go back, or any amount rental, is if water distribution analyzed it and said this hydrant's not going to work, it's going to affect other customers, and we can't allow that. We need to find another source for you. That would be the reason to give back money, whatever that first rental fee is, whether it's 50 or 100.
So in that second paragraph, we change it to 100 and then take the last sentence out. Is that accurate?
Cost of the water used.
And nothing, they don't get anything back.
That's what I would think.
Right.
Are you okay with that?
I'm fine with it. We don't have as many reoccurring. The ones that we have seem like they used it quite a bit. I mean, we've had a couple of projects that didn't just do it one time to fill up a pool or wash something. We've had some that's actually part of developments and keeping down dust control and using a lot of water. So I'm not saying it was a great customer, but it definitely was one that they needed our assistance in being able to keep down environmental things, which is dust. So that was one example of having to saturate the grounds to mitigate the dust on the
Is
site.
the thing changing to 100 with no return would affect how many people would use?
Yeah, I don't know, because I'm not the one ready.
It wouldn't
You think
matter.
$100 would affect anything?
most of these.
Would the board be open to, or discussing $50 for residential use and $100 for non-residential use?
Non-return.
Commercial, industrial, right. $50 plus your water usage if I'm residential, and 100 plus water usage if I'm non. If that's, yeah, versus someone in the meadow.
Yeah, I don't know if we can be loaning us out there to pressure wash your house though.
Then they'd have to pay $50.
Well, 100 they probably wouldn't do it, they'd pressure wash your house anyway.
That could be a deterrent from residential.
Yeah, I'm good with that, 50 and 50 for residentials, $100 for contractors.
They say $100 for non-residential use.
And non-refundable.
Non-refundable. The only times they'd be refunded would be as if water distribution did factor in that there's a pressure issue caused by allowing this rental and we can't allow it to be done.
Yeah,
So
of
we
course.
would, if we got into that circumstance, we would
Give it back.
we would reimburse them their money. Yes.
Do we have some of these meters in use now?
Yes, ma'am, we have some in use now, so, this policy change, we would notify them, again, most of the time it's contractors, they're gonna pass the cost on to, whomever, it is that they're doing the contracting for. And even in certain circumstances, we may have a hydrant that they're requesting to use that's maybe somewhere where we feel like there could be a pressure issue, but we could even give them another hydrant location that wouldn't cause an issue if they were going to do that. Again, they're responsible for that hydrant. If they're smart, they'll remove it, put the cap back on the hydrant, and only have that meter there when they're actually using it.
For the ones that already have it, I don't think we,
No, it's just
I mean, I would say this is for going forward for any new ones.
Right, effective after, right.
Yeah. Yeah. Starting from this day forward, new ones will be 50 for the residential.
This would be like a deposit or whatever. It doesn't pertain, I mean, it wouldn't go into how much water is used.
No, ma'am, it would basically, again, the rental fee is covering the cost the town has in the particular meter.
Then plus
Plus the water usage, yes.
And that would be, I guess, water charges based on whether it's inside the city or in the county.
I'll move to amend it to $50 for residential, $100 for commercial, non-refundable.
Sounds good. You got a motion from Alderman Countermine for $50 residential, $100 commercial, plus water.
Second.
Got a second from Alderman Causey.
That's with the corrections that Mr. Rosenbaum made.
Yes. Yes. Any other discussion? Call for the vote, Mr. Recorder.
Alderman Countermine?
Aye.
Alderman Causey?
Aye.
Alderman Callahan?
Aye.
Alderman Dixon?
Aye. All right, motion carried, and that's a wrap. I think our new Mr. Recorder did well down there. He got all the names right.